All right, everyone, welcome back. And I'm your host, Stephen Norris. And as always, my co host, Michael Dye. And today we're talking about appraisals. All right. Now, there's a bunch of different kind of appraisals based off of what kind of real estate that you are doing. Obviously, we can do residential real estate, commercial real estate, or developments. And so the appraisal process is what we're talking about. What is it? Who conducts it? And then once you do get that report back, what are your options now? So let's just jump right into and start off with what is the appraisal. So basically, if you have to get a loan for your property, i.e., not all cash, then you have to go through the appraisal process because the financial institution that is giving you that loan, whether it be from your lender or from a bank, needs to see the property appraised for the correct value of that loan. Now, that being said, there are three different kinds of appraisals that are able to be done from your property. And these methods are used by the appraisers to evaluate your property. Number one is something called the cost approach. Now, the cost approach basically says if this house burned down today, how much would it cost to rebuild it with today's materials and structures? That's evaluation number one. Number two is the most common type called the sales comparison approach. That's what most realtors use to evaluate houses when they're for sale. They go for the comps in the neighborhood or the neighborhood comparables, and they say, listen, you know what? Your property is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,700 square foot, and based off of the other houses that are similar in size and also square footage, this is the evaluation. Appraisers do the exact same thing. Now, the third method is called the income approach, which is primarily used for commercial properties. Now, that's not to say that it's not used for only commercial properties, but that's primarily where you're going to see that. On the residential side, you will see the sales comparison used more often because that's just the best method, unless it is a inaccurate property or if it's something special. Custom built properties is where you're going to have the cost approach more often than not. So, now that being said, let's talk about who does the appraisal. The appraisal is done by a third party, unknown company that is recruited or utilized by the lender or bank. They have no relationship with them at all whatsoever, and that is how it's supposed to be done because they cannot scrupulize or essentially give you a better deal on the appraisal because of the personal relationship. It goes the other direction too. Well, why not? Well, if the person does not have a good relationship with them, who's not to say that you, the borrower, are going to now be in a worse position because of that relationship. So that's why it is a neutral third party conducting the appraisal. Now, how does it work? They go out there, they get you the report, and they show you very plainly what are the neighborhood comparables or the houses that they use to use this approach for. You will see everything line item very easily. And yes, you are able to challenge the appraisal if you would like to, if it does not come into your favor. You have to fill out a very simple form, or more appropriately, your realtor fills out an appropriate form if that is your choice as the borrower to challenge the appraisal. Now, obviously, if the appraisal comes back fantastic, we're fine, right? Obviously, we're happy-go-lucky, zooming on to the finish line. But if it's not coming back, again, you could either challenge it or the sellers would lower their purchase price so that you can kind of bridge that gap, or use the borrower would have to bring additional funds to the table to bridge that gap. There's something out there called an appraisal gap clause that realtors can talk to you more about, and lenders like Michael can talk to you about as well. Now, that being said, there are more than one ways to bridge that appraisal gap if you, the borrower, have to do that yourself. You can bring more down payment, more funds, or if you already have a larger down payment, potentially restructuring your loan and taking money out of that down payment is another method. Now, obviously, please talk to your lender to see what is the best option possible. Realtors, I love them, but this is all about numbers, all right? Now, this is the lender's game because the appraisal is going to affect your loan. So please talk to the lender about the appraisal process, all right? Now, with that being said, Michael, talk to the folks a little bit about why the appraisal is so important and essentially how it works with the lending process as well.
Well, the biggest thing about the appraisal, right, and why it's being conducted by a third party that's not associated with the deal is that we need an unbiased professional opinion of the home's value, right? Because we're on the lending side, we're only going to lend on the sales price or the appraised value, whichever is less. As you had mentioned before, Stephen, you had said the appraisal doesn't come in at sales price, then we're having that appraisal gap. Right. So then we might need to make sure that we're covering that gap. So if the home is $400,000 home And we went under contract at 400, and we're seeing that a lot in this market right now. And the appraisal came back at 380. We need to be able to, we're only going to lend at the 380. So the borrower still needs to come up with that $20,000 difference between that appraised value. And that's on top of their closing costs. It's an additional fee and their down payment. So that they need to go ahead and bring in. So that would be the reason why we would restructure up on that sense. But I mean, as far as the appraisals goes, it's being done, and we have an appraisal management company, and it's done on a round robin. So basically, we order the appraisal, it goes through, hits the first person on their list, and that person doesn't want it, depending on maybe where that appraiser works or where they usually do their appraisals. They might decline that, and they might go to the next one. So that's kind of how that goes. Things that we need to watch out for on that appraisal as well is that we need to watch out. There's a couple things in there, and there's things that are, it's literally condition ratings. So anything with a C, it goes from C1 to C6, 1 being the best, 6 being the worst. Things we got to make sure that we at Megastar here, we won't even lend on something that's C5 or higher, because that tells us that there's actually a lot of work that needs to be done. The improvements has some deferred maintenance that needs to be done. It's just the property's not really up to date and not very safe. The other thing that we need to watch out for is the appraisal or building quality rating. And these are standardized all the way across the board. So, and that also goes from Q1 to Q6 and Q5 and Q6 being the worst. So those are things that we need to watch out for when we're looking at the appraisal and making sure that the property is in good shape and will hold its value and will be safe for the borrowers.
I love that.
So I mean, those are things that we really look out for on our side. As far as you had mentioned, challenging the cost of the appraisal. On a purchase, we see that here and there. But anymore with license, the appraisers being licensed and how they are, it's pretty difficult to go ahead and get that. But sometimes we see that, Stephen, because you realtors are out there in the market, and you guys might know some other comps that are in the neighborhood that might sway that appraiser. So we'll see that. As far as on the refinance side goes, very, very seldom do we really get the challenge that value. And remember this, everyone, when it comes to your appraisal, what you're buying a home for and what you're refinancing it for, that value is usually going to be two different things. In the purchase market, it's going to usually be maybe a little higher. That appraiser is trying to come in and as close to that contract sometimes as possible. But on the appraisal side, on the refinance side, seems like we're a little bit more conservative on that. And it's more looking about the comps around the neighborhood. So that's where we really need our realtors help to go ahead and find that true value sometimes if we want to challenge that.
Yeah. So to wrap up, everybody, Michael talked about a lot of great stuff right there. He talked about a lot of different terms, C1 through C6, Q1 through Q6. So those are basically just terms that lenders use to appropriate the value of a property's condition and quality, which, of course, if you want to learn more information about that, please reach out to Michael directly. And also concluding too, when it comes to your appraisers, realtors are very important on the front end of that piece to make sure that the property that you are buying, you're not paying too much for just to get you into a house. Now, obviously, you as the borrower, that is still your choice about what is your comfort level. If the realtor says, hey guys, you know what? Property is listed at $500,000. I have comps showing $525,000 and people are wanting to offer $575,000. Ooh, well, you know what? Now that's a situation for you, the borrower, to actually say to yourself, is this worth it to me? You have to be aware up front, potentially got to bring some extra money to the table if that is the case. Make sure you talk with your realtors and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Realtor, is this property actually worth what they're trying to sell it for? What is the worst case scenario of offer price to how much money I could bring to the table as well? That's the front end side. The back end side is going to be the lenders. They're going to tell you exactly what the dollar amount is going to associate to your monthly mortgage. And you as the borrower, again, have to feel comfortable with that number, all right? It is never about how much you buy a house for. It is always about what is your monthly mortgage that you're paying for that property. That's going to include your principal, interest, taxes, and also your homeowner's insurance, as well as potentially any HOAs or special assessments that may potentially be in that neighborhood, all right? So make sure you have the entire picture of whatever house you are buying and wherever you are. But with that being said, please write into us for additional questions or topics that you want us to talk more about. And we'll see you guys all next time.
Have a great week, everyone.